What's that sound I hear? That's the sound of truth ringing clear.
It's at VFP-TV at live.com. Once again, our email address is VFP-TV at live.com. Stay tuned for our phone number and snail mail address later on the show. This is a live show on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. or 2000 hours for those with the big 24-hour clock, with repeats at various times. Thanks to the WNCCMC for its support and the small but big-hearted staff. And tonight, it looks like it's just the bunny and me. So I hope we can entertain you, keep you glued to your TV set. We also have, a little later on, an address that Ann Wright gave at the Veterans for Peace National Convention in August of that last year, make it 2010. Ann Wright, Colonel Ann Wright, well, let me tell you a little bit about her right now. She retired Army colonel, and after she retired from the Army, she went into the State Department. And I forget now all of her accomplishments in the State Department, but she resigned from the State Department in reaction to W's incursion into Iraq. And she's been pretty active in the peace movement associated with a lot of Veterans for Peace activities, and was at the convention, and I talked with her briefly there. But this is one of the address that she gave at the dinner. I guess it was Saturday night, and that's coming up shortly. But for the moment, I guess we'll just let the peace hair take over. So there you go, David. So the peace hair has some information to impart. Yeah, I thought. Not so. Oh, okay. No information crawl? Okay. All right. You may or may not have noticed that the peace hair is sitting right next to copies of the War Crimes Times. War Crimes Times is a publication of the Veterans for Peace Chapter 99 here in Western North Carolina, and it's a quarterly publication, and it's also available online at warcrimestimes.org, where you can see the latest edition, you can see the archives there, and you can see updates that come in, because Kim Carlisle, the editor-in-chief, and his staff of volunteers are gathering together the next issue, which should be coming up for spring of 2011. There's going to be something happening in Washington, D.C. on the 19th of March, sponsored by the Veterans for Peace and a whole slew of other fellow peace travelers, in an observation of the invasion of Iraq. How many years ago? 9? Has it been 9 years? Has it been 9 years, Mr. Peacehair? Talk to me. And for more information about that, you can't rely on me because I don't have any more information, but you can go to stopthesewars.org to get more information about that coming up on the 19th of March, as I recall. There are a few things happening in the area on a regular basis in support of peace and the awareness thereof in the community. On Sundays, the Episcopal Peace Fellowship holds a weekly vigil from 4:30 to 5 p.m. at All Souls Cathedral, which is in Biltmore Village, a little bedroom community to Asheville. No. That's not entirely true. On Tuesdays, the Veterans for Peace, Western North Carolina Chapter 99, holds their weekly Peace Vigil from 4:30 to 5:30 at Pack Square in downtown Asheville. And you come down there and stand for peace in public and let your friends and neighbors see you be a witness there too. On Fridays, Women in Black have a weekly vigil at 5 p.m. at Pack Square in Asheville. So the same place that the Peace Vigil, the Veterans for Peace Peace Vigil on Tuesdays, Pack Square in downtown Asheville. On Fridays, the Women in Black hold their weekly vigil starting at 5 p.m. And also every Friday at the Courtyard Gallery at the Film Mechanic Building at 109 Robert Street in Asheville is World Cinema Night every Friday night. The doors open at 7:30 p.m. and closes at 8 p.m. So, you know, you've got a half hour to get in, and then the doors close and you're outside. To see film reviews for upcoming events there, you can go to www.mountainx.com/movies. That's the Mountain Express site there. And on Saturdays, our brothers and sisters in Transylvania County, Transylvanians for Peace, and the WNC Physicians for Social Responsibility have their weekly Peace Vigil at noon in front of the courthouse in downtown Brevard, North Carolina, which is, as I said, in Transylvania County. So those are some of the regular things that are happening in and around our viewing area and listening area and traveling area. There's an event coming up on April 9th at the Diana Wortham Theater at Pack Square, starting at 7 p.m. Speaking Truth to Power, a Permanent State of War. There comes a time when the destructive actions and policies of leadership must be verbally confronted by the people they represent. Wow, that sounds like something that's happening in, say, Libya or Egypt or Bahrain. The national security enterprise has succeeded in developing a permanent system that diverts much of the country's resources to the military, intelligence, security sector. This action undermines and threatens the socio-economic status of our nation. Speaking Truth to Power is an evening of thoughtful commentary with featured speakers Gareth Porter, who's an investigative journalist and historian and who specializes in U.S. national security policy, and Ray McGovern, former U.S. Army intelligence officer, 27-year CIA veteran and analyst. In addition, the U.S. veterans Connor Curran, Ethan McCord, Mike Preisner, and Josh Steibler will share their personal stories and perspectives of our permanent state of war and the true costs of war. In order to make intelligent choices and decisions regarding solutions to political power and financial policies that drive our nation, the American people must know the truth. Join us for an informative and inspirational evening where your questions may be the ones asked and answered by our prestigious panel of guests. So, and that's the press release, but there's no place to go to for information. So if you want more information about that, you may email us here at, our email address is vfp-tv@live.com, and I'll be glad to get you in touch with some more information regarding this event coming up on April 9th here in Asheville at the Diana Orthon Theater, Speaking Truth to Power. Here we go. You can't see that. This is what I'm looking for. The Resist the War Machine action in Saturday, March 19th in Washington, D.C. Speakers include Elliot Adams, Mike Ferner, Chris Hedges, Ralph Nader, Ann Wright. Ann Wright's going to be there. So we're going to give you a little later on a little preview of, well, not a preview, we're going to actually the recording of the address that she gave at the Veterans for Peace Convention in August of last year in Portland, Maine. So, like I said, more information about that action in Washington, D.C. You can go to stopthesewars.org. Stop These Wars, one string of letters that seem to spell out stopthesewars.org. And get some more information about that. Coming up in March, let's see what else we have here. I'll read you our VFP statement of purpose. We, having dutifully served our nation, do hereby affirm our greater responsibility to serve the cause of world peace. To that end, we will work with others to increase public awareness of the costs of war. How is that war economy working for you out there, folks? Back to the script. To restrain our government from intervening overtly and covertly in the internal affairs of other nations. To end the arms race and to reduce and eventually eliminate nuclear weapons. To seek justice for veterans and victims of war. That's a discussion right there. I mean, maybe we should change that to seek justice for veterans and other victims of war. To abolish war as an instrument of national policy. To achieve these goals, members of Veterans for Peace pledge to use nonviolent means and to maintain an organization that is both democratic and open, with the understanding that all members are trusted to act in the best interests of the group for the larger purpose of world peace. And a few simple words, but very, very weighty. And I know you were waiting to hear those this week. Let's see. That's close enough for our first little information break. Actually, this whole show is going to be an information break. So the latest addition to the information break is this. Please visit the Veterans for Peace Western North Carolina Chapter 99 headquarters in the Phil Mechanic Studios, 109 Robert Street in the River Arts District, one short block west of the Gray Eagle, Tuesdays through Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. The phone number there is area code 828-258-1800. Once again, that's 828-258-1800. That's the phone number for the Veterans for Peace Chapter 99's headquarters right here in Asheville, North Carolina. You are invited to stand for peace with the New South Network of War Resistors, Iraqi Veterans Against the War, Military Families Speak Out, and other peacemongers at the Veterans for Peace Peace Vigil each Tuesday from 4:30 to 5:30 at Pack Place, the intersection of Patton and Biltmore Avenues in downtown Asheville. Almost regardless of the weather, there'll be some veterans standing there, and you can come out. You are invited to come out and stand with them. You don't have to be a member of any of these organizations. You don't have to be a veteran. I mean, you don't even have to be a citizen of this country. If you are willing to stand in public for peace, here's an opportunity to do that here in Asheville every Tuesday. And if you're not in Asheville at that time, you can stand for peace wherever you are in solidarity with us here in the parish of the South. I mean, in Asheville. So that's enough of those announcements. Is there anything more Mr. The Peace Hair has to say? Or are we going to have the...
roll the tape?
Yeah, oh, the Ann Wright. I was talking about it, and we might as well, this is a good time as any to roll it. So thank you, David. David Island back there.
Thank you, Michael. And let me add my congratulations to this wonderful, wonderful organizing team that we've had from Maine that's put on a tremendous convention for us. Yay! You all have really done a super job. I mean, these Veterans for Peace conferences to me are one of the highlights of the year. I go to a lot of different things, but I'll tell you, what we do here in Veterans for Peace is really important, and the information that we take back to our chapters and our friends. I mean, there's no other place that you can get as much information as you get right here, and within a community and a family that you enjoy being with. When you've been a veteran or you've been part of a veteran's family, it is a special relationship, and it is an honor for me to be a part of this organization. Michael said I'm going to do the history of VFP. Well, not quite, because I don't have much of a history. I've only been a part of Veterans for Peace for a very short amount of time, only 6 years really. It was at the 2004 convention in Boston that I first met Veterans for Peace. I'd actually met one Veteran for Peace a little bit earlier than that, and that was Lane Anderson out on the beaches of Santa Barbara, California. When I just happened to be in Santa Barbara visiting some friends there, and we were down at the beach on a Sunday afternoon. And there on the beach were crosses. And it was like, what in the world is going on here? And my friend and I walked down there and talked to this guy, and he said, well, these are crosses for, you know, all those people that have died in Iraq. And I said, well, that's really interesting, and I'm a veteran, and, you know, I really appreciate you doing that. And he went, oh, you're a veteran. Oh, yeah. Well, that's good. You ought to join Veterans for Peace. And I said, well, I guess I could now, because I used to be in the government. I was a diplomat, and I resigned last year over the Iraq War, so maybe I should become a part of this. And then he said, well, we have this convention that's coming up in Boston, and why don't you come to the convention? And I went there not knowing anybody but Lane Anderson, and then meeting all of you all. And it's just been a real wonderful time since then. I mean, if you think of all the things that have been going on just in that short amount of time that I've been a part of Veterans for Peace, if you just think back maybe 5 years ago, where were you 5 years ago? Where were you on August 28th, 5 years ago? There were many of you all who had just been at Camp Casey, right after a Veterans for Peace conference in Dallas, Texas. And in fact, how many of you all went with Cindy Sheehan, a Gold Star mother, who had said, she had spoken at the Veterans for Peace Conference, and she said, you know, George Bush only lives 2 hours away. Why don't we go and let's challenge him, and let's go on Saturday. And of course that was the business meeting, and so everybody went, yeah, let's go. Anything to get out of that business meeting. And so everybody hopped in their cars, and then there was that big old Veterans for Peace bus that was from where, Oregon or California?
Mendocino County.
Mendocino County, that's right. It was moving along on some kind of smoke. We still don't know what that was. But off we went, you know, here going to Crawford, Texas. Who had ever been there? No one. Who wanted to go there? No one really, no. It was the hottest day you can imagine. It was 105 Texas heat, and we got in those cars and buses, and off we went. And sure enough, we went by the old Crawford Peace House, and they greeted us, and then we went on up to this little triangle and got out of the cars and started walking up toward George Bush's ranch, because by golly, Cindy, on behalf of Gold Star parents, Gold Star families, wanted to say to George Bush, what noble cause is it that our sons and daughters have died for? And we were stopped by the police, and kept there on that hot asphalt. Then they pushed us off into the old ditch, you know, snakes and chiggers and ticks and all that. And it was like, what in the world are we doing here? And then all of a sudden, bad trouble. You don't mess with a mother whose kid has been killed by the military. You don't mess with them. And Cindy said, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving unless George Bush talks to me. And we were going, oh, okay, yeah, right. So we were out there 2, 3, 4 hours. Everybody was getting sunburned. The sweat was dripping off of us. And Cindy was saying, I'm not leaving until he comes out here. I'm not leaving. And we said, well, you know, we've got that last banquet. We got to get back to Dallas for the last banquet. You know, we're all in big trouble. I mean, who was president? It was David, wasn't it? Oh yeah, we were in big trouble. So we were saying, well, we got to get back there. And Cindy said, well, I'm staying. So we had 5 people that said, we'll stay. Those were Code Pink Women for Peace women out of Dallas that stayed with Cindy. And we said, but we'll be back. We'll be back. And the next morning, after we got finished with everything, the car started loading up, and off we went. And 27 days later, how many of you all, if you were at Camp Casey, in the very first one, stand up. How many of you all were at Camp Casey? Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Yeah. And then how many of you all were at other Camp Caseys? Because we had 5 other Camp Caseys. Stand up if you were there. Yeah, there we go. You know, it was Veterans for Peace, that monumental thing that happened there, where it galvanized the world. Not just America, but the world was watching TV. What was going to happen? That mother, and then other mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters of Gold Star families and military families, and Veterans for Peace, and Iraq Vets Against the War. I mean, and average citizens from all over the country and actually all over the world started arriving in little bitty Crawford, Texas. And what happened? The world started watching. And indeed, I think for that period of time, for the next 2, 3, 4 years, there were some changes that were going on, because finally the media we had caught the attention of the media, actually. We had caught the attention of the media on behalf of all of those families that have been broken by these horrors of war. Those horrors of war that right now for Iraq, 4,414 Americans, 179 British, 135 of other countries, and how many Iraqis? 1 million, 1.5 million, 4 million displaced. In Afghanistan, 1,249 plus 3 today. 3 today, as they call them, insurgents, Afghans, challenging the U.S. and NATO of being in their country, tried to overrun 2 bases today. In Afghanistan, 332 Brits have died, 2 times as many as in Iraq. Other nations, 452, 4 times more than other nations military have died in Iraq. Our military families that have been split apart, our Gold Star families, and in fact, let's recognize all of the Gold Star families. We have the Lucys, we have the Arredondos, we have the Genesios, we have Bonnie Gorman. Are there any other Gold Star families that are here? Let's have those four, please, those families, please stand. And these people are the eloquent spokespersons for us on these terrible costs of war. How about the military families? Everyone who's a military family member, please stand up. And how about those brave men and women who have served in Iraq and Afghanistan and said, no more? How about all of the Iraq veterans against the war that are here? And then how about those veterans for peace? Everybody that's a veteran for peace or an associate veteran for peace or a supporter of veterans peace. Come on. Yeah. There we go. Listen, as old as we are, we need every opportunity to stand up. So that was 5 years ago. And then 5 years ago, there was something else that was happening. 5 years ago, that hurricane hit today. Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. And it was the day that we were actually ending Camp Casey because George Bush was finally leaving, going back to Washington. And it was Veterans for Peace that packed up 10,000 pounds worth of goods out of Camp Casey and drove those goods over to Covington, Louisiana, and started a monumental effort that all of the chapters of Veterans for Peace contributed in fundraising and getting donations. And how many of you all went to Louisiana over that next year? Stand up for that. Let's see how many went to Louisiana to help the victims of Hurricane Katrina. Yeah. Hurricane Katrina had hit. And then how about a year later, when we decided we would combine those issues of the cost of war and the cost of the hurricane? How many of you all were on the march between Mobile, Alabama, and New Orleans, Louisiana? Stand up for that one. Yeah. Woo, we've been busy, haven't we? And that's only just into 2006. How many of you all climbed up onto the archives in front of in Washington, D.C. to show the nation's capital we needed accountability, that indeed arrest Bush, accountability for war crimes. And how many other things were there? Those monumental things in 2006 in Seattle when at our conference there a young Army lieutenant spoke in front of us, Aaron Watada. Aaron Watada saying, I will not go to Iraq. And then the Army tried to court-martial him. And then they couldn't court-martial him. They tried again, didn't, and he's finally out of the military. All of our war resistors, everybody that's been a war resistor, a conscientious objector, please stand up. Everybody. That are citizen activists now. We're no longer in the military, we're not in the government, we're citizens. Citizens using what's happened to us in order to influence policies. And a lot of policies we've tried to influence. We've pressured on these wars, and in fact we've had some successes on it. I mean, what happened in the 2006 election? 2006 election when the Congress changed. The Congress changed. But it didn't do anything. 2008, the presidency changed. Didn't do anything. We're still working on that. We can't give up. We've got to keep working, but we're so disappointed on what's happened, but we got to keep after them. This is the time we got to keep going with them. It's us as citizen activists that have to be doing this, and it's us as the voice of veterans. There are other things in the world, though, that we've been involved in. We've been involved in Vietnam, people going back to Vietnam, on issues of Agent Orange, on issues of helping orphans. We've got veterans for Iraq veterans against the war that will be going to Iraq just this next year. No doubt we'll be having missions into Afghanistan. We've had delegations that have gone to Korea. We've had delegations that have gone to other places too. For example, this last year and a half, I've been focused quite strongly on the issue of Israel and Palestine. When I resigned from the U.S. government, I resigned over the Iraq war primarily, but I put in that letter of resignation that I was also concerned about the unbalanced policies of the U.S. administrations, all of them, on the issue of Israel and Palestine. And when the Israeli attack happened in 2008 and 2009 on Gaza that killed 1,400 people, wounded 5,000 and left 50,000 homeless, I went to Gaza. And then in the year of 2009, I was there 3 times and helped organize 1,350 people in the Gaza Freedom March in December. And we had a good, strong veterans contingent there. Those of you all that were part of the Gaza Freedom March, yeah. Please stand up. And then I ended up going into with the Gaza flotilla. And I'll just spend a few minutes with that because I know a lot of people have been asking about it, and I really didn't give much of a description while I was here. And in a very short amount of time, I will mention that all 6 ships that were part of that flotilla were forcefully boarded by the Israeli military. On each ship, percussion grenades were used to blow out windows, to confuse, disorient people. Glass breaking, sounds like you wouldn't believe since the last time you were in the military. Flashing lights, smoke, paint bullets being used on every one of the ships. People being hit in the face with the paint bullets. Stun guns being used. On the big ship, the Marvi Marmara, which I was on for 48 hours before we turned toward Gaza. As we were turning toward Gaza, I went from one ship to another and was on the Challenger ship. On board that Marvi Marmara, 9 people killed, 50 people wounded. We need a neutral, independent investigation to really find out what happened. We know what the Israeli military has said. We know a part of it. It's still a classified document where they say they made mistakes, but it was mostly in intelligence. The Israeli civilian investigation has not been completed. The United Nations has created a panel for the review of the reports of the countries involved. And I have a bone to pick with the UN on that because there wasn't just countries involved. There were activists from 45 countries involved that did this without the permission of any government. We didn't ask anyone what we were going to do. We, as citizens, were challenging what we felt was an immoral, inhumane policy of not only the Israeli government, but the Egyptian government, the American government, the governments of the EU countries. And we didn't ask anyone's permission, and we want a report that takes into account all of the evidence that's there, all of those cameras, all of those cell phones, all of those computers that have been taken from us, stolen from us, and are still in the possession of the Israeli military. That has to be used as a part of the investigation. Now, this is citizens in action. Citizens in action. There were only 14 Americans that were on that flotilla out of 750 people. Only 14 Americans. There were no professional, I shouldn't say professional, but media journalists. We had one documentarian, thank God she was there, Yara Lee, because it was one of her film cartridges that made it out from the endless inspections that we had, body inspections by the Israelis. And you can see that hour-and-a-half footage of what was going on the Marvi Marmara before the Israeli attack and during it. That's the only thing we have out there. But there are hundreds of hours that are there that the Israelis have. So we are demanding that that material be returned to us. And we are also saying that this next flotilla, and there will be another one because that blockade has not been broken. It has been opened a little, but it is still there. People cannot move freely. Goods cannot come in freely. So we are organizing a U.S. ship to Gaza. And we need your help. And I apologize if anybody's offended for us doing a little fundraising here, because I know everybody's got very important things that you are pushing, but I'm going to take the liberty here to say we need $370,000, which of course would fund Veterans for Peace for a full year, but anyway, we're going to buy a ship with it. And we've already raised $180,000 in 6 weeks, because this is what happens when people see that there is some action, there's movement, that some citizens somewhere in the world have broken some policies open. So we're pleading with you. We need some more money. And we need pushing. We need you to please return to your homes and help us with fundraisers. We have a website. It's called ustogaza.org. If you want to make out checks tonight, we've got little pieces of paper here that you can make checks under $150 to Stand for Justice. If they're over, Institute for Media Analysis. If you don't want the government to trace your money, just give us cash. But we're having fundraisers, and in fact in Philadelphia on September 10th we're going to be having a fundraiser on board no, that was not on board a ship, but we've been on board ships. We encourage you, if you've got any water at all in your town, go ahead and have a ship. Tomorrow we'll be taking some placards down to the little ships down here and take some pictures of what we're doing right here in Portland, Maine. It's important. These sorts of things that we as veterans participate in are so important. And whether it's in Vietnam, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Gaza, whether it's in your hometowns to try to take care of veterans, whether it's coming to Washington, D.C. on October 2nd, when we as one nation will be gathering, as civil rights group, labor unions, peace groups, please, please get your chapters to come. Let's support that. You know, today, August 28th, today in Washington, you may not have been able to see the TV, but you know, at the Lincoln Memorial, Glenn Beck was there. Glenn Beck was there. He said it was for social justice. He said it was for social justice. It was for equality and justice. But when you look at what he stands for, it's not quite that. Reverend Al Sharpton had a counter march. If we had not been here, I know many of you all would have been there. And we need to be there on October 2nd, because that's really what's going to be the counterweight to what we're seeing happening in our country, where not only we have to be concerned about stopping wars, but we have to be concerned about racism, bigotry in our country that we see is on the rise. So I know we're tired. Oh boy, are we tired. We've been doing this for how long? You all have been doing it longer, decades longer than me. I'm a newcomer to it. We're tired, but we can't be too tired. We are unhappy about what's going on, but we can't be unhappy, because we gotta go. It is our country. It is what we believe in. We will make it what we believe in, and I know that we can do it. And I'm so proud to be here with Veterans for Peace. End the wars! Stop the wars! Thank you.
Wow, that was Ann Wright at the Veterans for Peace convention in August of last year, 2010, in Portland, Maine. What a passionate speaker. I can't imagine. She must have been quite the firecracker as a colonel in the Army, with that much energy and animation and passion. But as you can see, if you're watching closely, boys and girls, there's a couple of little clues going. No, that was a somewhat prepared speech. I mean, you can see her turning pages over and notes. But and that was shot, like I said, in Portland, Maine, by an independent media group going by the name of the Punk Patriot. They also shot some interviews during the convention in the hallway between the different events that was going on in the convention. And one of the interviews they shot was of Ann Wright. The interview was the day before. This was on a Friday afternoon when they caught her in the hallway running about and did a quick interview of her by the Punk Patriot. And I think David said he's got that queued up, so he's ready to play. So let her roll, David.
Who are you and why should we care?
Well, my name is Ann Wright. I'm a retired U.S. Army colonel and a former U.S. diplomat who resigned in opposition to the war in Iraq. And you ought to care because your tax money's going for war, and you're not getting a good education, and you're not getting good this and that because we're spending all the money on war, and that's why you ought to care.
What are your thoughts on the recent WikiLeaks thing? Do you feel that that actually put, there was stuff in the media about, oh, that's putting people in harm's way. Did that actually put anybody aside from Julian Assange in harm's way?
I don't think so. I think what it was revealing was very technical stuff that we actually already knew about. I mean, if you look at the testimony of our Iraq veterans against the war and other Iraq veterans that may not be against the war, but just what they saw, what they did, there's nothing that I've seen in those very technical radio transmission things that indicate anything different than we already knew.
So, you know those little, the magnetic stickers, the support the troops ribbon stickers. Do we have enough of those on our cars, or should we be putting more of those on our cars?
Well, I think we could put more on them, but we should put support the troops, bring them home. We need another bumper sticker to go with that one.
What is your favorite color?
Oh, the favorite color is, it's a rainbow color.
Did you hear that the war in Iraq is over?
Oh, well, I've heard these tales before. I've heard, let's see, when was it? 60 days after we went in, mission was accomplished. We heard it then in 2003, and now the Obama administration says, well, we only have 50,000 troops left, and except that the troops they're sending over there just happen to come from Fort Hood, Texas, which is the Armored Cavalry Division.
Yeah, but they're non-combat, right?
Oh, no. They come from a combat unit. They're combat troops. Anybody that's in the military is a combat troop. Try to tell anyone who's been in Iraq that they're not combat troops. They're all combat troops.
War, what is it good for?
Nothing. There is something. It's not, what it does is make a lot of people rich off killing. They make a killing off killing. And for them, it's good. But for living human beings with a conscience, it's not good at all.
What should people be doing to change things?
Well, certainly hitting the streets, letting people know, people in power know that you're displeased with whatever policy it is, that we can't be silent in times like this, that we can't be apathetic, that we've got to stand up and have our voices and presence be counted. And some people like to do a lot of work on computers, but they can still be active that way. They can email congressmen, presidents about their concerns. What we can't be are ostriches with our heads in the sand on these things.
Politically, what do you think is the best strategy moving forward?
Well, I think it's, well, on the wars, it's certainly ending these things. And on the future political system of our country, it seems like we can't seem to find anybody that doesn't like war to elect. We thought we had a candidate with Barack Obama that was a little more on let's stop these wars, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's the great Afghan war, the good war, and 30,000 more troops, $1 million per soldier, no end in sight in that thing.
Why is it, do you think, that people with political power enjoy killing people so much?
Well, I think a lot of them make money off of it. They are, the companies that support war usually are great campaign financiers, and many people that are in administrations will leave government to go back into those war-making machines. So I think it's a part of the system that the war is bred into the system by the people who pay for or who get paid for war. The corporations that build the armaments, the ammunition, the companies that provide the private security firms, all of this stuff.
Have you seen the movie Avatar?
Yes.
It's a good movie, isn't it?
It certainly is. It ought to make a lot of people think about what our country is doing to the world.
Wait, what?
Oh, I know. Can you believe it? It wasn't even about us, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just the big. Wait, so do you think that more people would care about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan if the people there were 10 feet tall and blue?
Well, it's kind of amazing. I really hope that we would have a revolution coming out of the Avatar movie, that people would take to the streets after that and go directly to their congressional offices and raise hell with them. Because it's kind of apparent, I think, what was going on there. And that was a wonderful vehicle to kind of show the empires that America has had. I mean, ours would be ancient history compared to what they were talking about in Avatar, but it just leads right on for the last 400 years what America's been doing.
Thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, Anne Wright, indeed. She has written several articles online in publications, and names of which escape me at the moment. She's also written a book. In fact, she came through Asheville on her book tour a couple of years back. I don't know whether our chapter invited her or a couple of members of our chapter invited her, but whenever she came, she gave a talk at the Firestorm Cafe here on Commerce Street in Asheville as part of her book tour. And then that was back in the day before we had a TV show. We were just on the radio, and she actually came down to the radio station and did a little chat there as well. So maybe next time she's in town, we can get her to come on TV, or we may be able to Skype her in for an interview. Quite an interesting woman. She, I don't remember the title of her book either. So do your homework. Let's do your homework, everybody. Let's look up, search Anne Wright, A-N-N W-R-I-G-H-T, and find out what articles she's written and the name of her book if you want for more information about her. You could also email us here at VFP-TV@live.com. Veterans for Peace invites the public to their monthly business meetings on the first Thursday of each month, starting at 6:30 p.m. at our headquarters in the Film Mechanics Studio, 109 Robert Street in the River Arts District, one short block west of the Gray Eagle in Asheville. Keep up to date with VFP Chapter 99 by visiting our blog spot. Our blog spot is VFP-chapter09WNC.blogspot.com. Once again, that's VFP Chapter 099WNC.blogspot.com. In addition to VFP, TV, and radio, the Veterans for Peace Western North Carolina Chapter 99 produces the War Crimes Times. I mentioned earlier, a quarterly publication which is updated and archived at warcrimestimes.org. You can go to warcrimestimes.org and see the latest issue, see updates to the latest issue, and see the archived issues as well. War Crimes Times is also available in several sites around, well, in Asheville. Come to one of the Peace Vigils on Tuesday, and I'm sure someone there will have a copy of the War Crimes Times. And if you go to the French Broad Food Co-op on Biltmore Avenue, there are copies of the War Crimes Times there, and also at Green Life, is it? I think also there's copies there. You can also go to the Haywood Community College outside the bookstore. There are copies there. Also at the Haywood County Library. I dropped copies off there myself, so I know they are there. Also at Heinzelmanchen Brewery in Silva. I stopped there. Hey, every once in a while, drop off a couple of copies. City Lights Bookstore in Silva also has copies of the War Crimes Times available, as does the Guadalupe Cafe and Signature Coffee. Also, each of those are also in Silva. as well as Ted's Clothesline, which is a laundromat there in Silva, and the Soul Infusion Tea House also has available copies of the War Crimes Times, free. Just stop by, say hey. You can also go by the Jackson County Library. They drop copies off there. And on the campus of the Western Carolina University, upstairs in the University Center, as well as at the Hunter Library. And while you're out that way in Cullowhee, stop by the Mad Batter Bake Shop. You can pick up a copy of the War Crimes Times there, as well as at the Cat's Knit Cafe, located in Cullowhee. Cullowhee. I like going out there to that the wild, wild western part of western North Carolina. Recently, we sent a letter out to our members, to our chapter, and I just want to kind of bring everyone, give them some idea of the kind of information we share among ourselves. At the local level, Chapter 99 continues to be the most consistent and active peace organization in the region. Over the last year, we've maintained a high public profile, not just with our weekly vigil at Pack Square in Asheville, which has continued for 7 years through all kinds of weather, but also through events in the media. We sponsored speaking events such as the Josh Stiver, Connor Curran, Salam Hassan People's Journey Tour. We've staffed a booth at the Goombay Festival, and there's a Goombay Festival coming up this year. Maybe we'll get a booth there as well, which proved to be a great exposure for us. We have launched an organization called Peacetown Asheville, which is some local folks who are concerned about raising the awareness of peace here in Asheville. We've assisted formerly homeless vets as they've moved into permanent housing, as well as we've established our own regular headquarters and continued to do our radio, TV, and newspaper ventures into the media. I think we might be one of the very few Veterans for Peace chapters in the nation that have our own permanent headquarters. Our weekly Veterans Voices radio show has morphed to become VFP-TV and radio, an hour of live conversation, interviews, and presentations, and whatever else we may be doing tonight. Each Wednesday evening from 8 p.m. on URTV. You can watch that on cable channel 20 here in Asheville, or by going to WNCCMC.org. That's WNCCMC.org. And it's also recorded for rebroadcast later in the week, and as well as being on Main FM, Asheville station 103.5, low power station here in Asheville. The Veterans for Peace has recognized the need to organize beyond our own members. The December 16th action had support and participation from more than a dozen like-minded groups, and that was an action the Veterans for Peace and other groups had in Washington, D.C. We had some excerpts of that on a previous show. The How's the War Economy Working For You campaign connects with everyone. Locally, we are working with students from the UNCA and the New South Network of War Resistors and others. You mentioned of the how's that war economy working for you. I've got a little article here written by Woody Powell, who's a member of the National Veterans for Peace organization, and a local, but I don't remember which local he's a member of, Woody Powell, entitled, How is the War Economy Working For You? The other night, now this is from his article, I'm just going to read it here. The other night, I watched a television special called The Crumbling of America. It was about our infrastructure, our roads, power grids, levees, bridges, dams, water mains, and sewer lines. A lot of water main and sewer line problems are happening here in Asheville as well. Communities all over America are strapped for the money desperately needed to repair and rebuild. It's a disaster happening before our eyes. And you know, if you've been out there driving the highways and byways, how true that is. Meanwhile, and this is back to the article now by Woody Powell, meanwhile, my grandchildren are having a heck of a time funding their college educations. Some are not getting them at all. Tuitions are sky high and grants are scarce. Their children are trying to learn in crowded classrooms because the district can't pay enough teachers. And you know what's happening vis-a-vis teachers around the nation. How can this happen in the richest country in the world? Consider this. The Department of Defense is budgeted in 2010 for a whopping $663.7 billion dollars. That not counting the $30 billion being requested of Congress to expand the war in Afghanistan. That is what it costs to maintain approximately 800 bases in 135 countries around the world and conduct 2 wars that we know of in Iraq and Afghanistan. Of the world's military expenditure, the U.S. accounts for 46.5%. The next 10 countries count for a combined 20.7%. China, 6.6%, and Russia, 3.5%. This is old news. We have been in a war economy for a long, long time. And what is a war economy? It is one built on the premise of perpetual war, making things that wear out and blow up, providing short-term employment as opposed to a peacetime economy that devotes its resources to making things that people can actually use to better their lives, thereby perpetuating employment and prosperity rather than destruction and poverty. Page 2, article by Woody Powell. I am a veteran of the Korean War. I served willingly, thinking I was fighting on the side of right. Years ago, I learned more about my war that made me question the wisdom of killing 2.5 million people, most of them civilians, in a quiet, in a quest that came to such an uncertain end. In fact, we're still technically, we haven't signed a peace treaty with North Korea. An uneasy truce that threatens to collapse even to this day. Why is so little imagination given to the art of peacemaking and so much to war making? More and more folks are asking themselves and their representatives, are these wars really necessary? Have they made us any safer than we were before September 11th? Or have we been creating more enemies as we grind along, using up our young people in multiple deployments and destroying their families? This democracy, which I love and thought I was defending, can only thrive when we allow ourselves to ask the question, who stands to profit most from these wars? Is it us, the people, or is it Halliburton, Blackwater, Browning, Boeing, and their ilk? And that's, like I said, an article from Woody Powell. Oh, well, they're running out of time here. So I guess it's closing. Here's our closing crawl. So thanks once again, folks, for watching VFP TV and radio, or listening to the radio if you're listening to the radio. If you have any questions or comments about our show, or if you would like to be a guest or suggest a guest or topic, you may email us at vfptv@live.com. VFP-TV@live.com. Our theme song, A Soldier's Story, was written and performed by Stat Kenny. VFP-TV and Radio is co-produced by Kasha Baxter and Ronald Hereda, with technical support from David Ireland. Hello, David, back there in the control room all by himself. Kasha is on assignment or someplace out of town. A special salute to the staff members and volunteers of the Western North Carolina Community Media Center and the Mountain Area Information Network. Our snail mail address is Chapter 99, Post Office Box 356, Mars Hill, NC 28754. Once again, Chapter 99, P.O. Box 356, Mars Hill, North Carolina 28754. And so that ends our program for this time. On behalf of David Ireland, our peace here and myself, Ronald Herrera. Until our brothers and sisters come home, we are yours in peace. Peace out. Thank you. You've been a great help. I'm glad you were here. And I'm glad David was here, working